It's time to talk about the important issues for the natural state. And there's only one place to turn for that. Opportunity Arkansas's Nick Horton. You can find Nick's work at opportunityarkansas.org.
And welcome back to the Wednesday edition of First News. It is just about 41 minutes after 7 o'clock, which means it's time to speak with Nick Horton, the founder and CEO of Opportunity Arkansas, who joins us on the American Leak Detection phone line. And Nick, welcome back to the show. And Nick, I was looking last week, saw a great picture of you at the state capitol right on the steps there, congratulating Senator John Payton from Wilburn with a 2025 Opportunity Defender Award. And so, can you tell us how do you win an Opportunity Defender Award? What did Senator Payton do to earn this?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the chance to talk about this and to brag on Senator Payton, frankly, because he has been one of the most consistent conservative voices that we've had in the state Senate, and particularly this last legislative session that ended in April. So, as you know, Toby, and your audience probably knows, we release something that we call the Opportunity Scorecard after every legislative session. So this session, there were over 16,000 bills, 1,652 bills that were filed by the legislature in 90 days. Way too many. Yeah. Over 1,000 of them were signed into law by the governor. Way too many bills, way too many new laws. But our team, Jay Robertson, our policy director, and some of our staff here at Opportunity Arkansas, we read every single bill and we analyzed them and made a determination. Does this advance opportunity for Arkansas, or does it move us backward? Is this going to put parents in charge of education and put students first in education, or is it going to move this backwards? And so our policy roadmap that we publish every year for us, and we hope for the legislature and Arkansas voters and Arkansans going forward, that's the lens, that's the filter that we use to judge these bills and whether or not they're good or bad. We put them on our bill tracker. And then really, honestly, you said it exactly right in your opening there in your question. Senator Payton earned this award. We did not just pick his name out of a hat, right, or say, gosh, we really love his cowboy hats and his attire and the way he dresses and carries himself at the Capitol, so we're going to give him an award. This is an award that is based on his voting record on issues like tax reform, getting rid of our grocery tax, fixing our broken education system, fixing our ballot initiative process, putting more accountability into school boards and the education system for parents. So he earned that award. He scored an over 90% on our scorecard, and because of that, we wanted to be sure we recognized him and thanked him for his good work.
Yeah, no, that is good. So Senator John Payton, recipient of a 2025 Opportunity Defender Award, so very good. That's good work on his part. Nick, you and I have discussed getting rid of the state income tax quite a bit in this segment, tax reform, of course. And there's an article recently in the Arkansas Money and Politics publication where the chairman of the Republican Party of Arkansas, Joseph Wood, he says that he thought income tax repeal was a sure thing eventually. Then the White House Minority Leader, Representative Andrew Collins, a Democrat, he said he's not so sure the state will eliminate the income tax anytime soon. And so both of these guys are in the know from a certain extent anyways. And so which one do we think is closer to what's really happening? Do we think this can happen eventually? Or do we think that, boy, this is actually a long way off? I mean, any gauge of where we are in this process?
Well, I have a lot to say about this topic, Toby. And in fact, I have so much to say. I want to give a plug for tomorrow afternoon on the Steve Finnegan Show. Our policy director, Jay Robertson, he's going to be on at 4:35, and I imagine he's going to have a lot to say about this topic as well. Yeah. But let me just hit the high points, and then you jump in and cut me off because there is a lot to unpack from this article. Number one, let me just remind people that about 8-9 years ago, our highest rate sales tax for the top bracket in Arkansas, which only started like at the $35,000 mark. It's not just for rich people, by the way, which is one of the biggest myths out there. That's always worth addressing. But that top rate was at 6.9%. As of today, we are at 3.9%.
Right.
So this question about can it happen and can it happen? The minority leader in the article talks about all the drastic budget cuts and all the core functions of government that would have to be shut down and disrupted if we do this. Well, guess what? In less than a decade, we've nearly cut our income tax in half. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, state spending has continued to grow. Now, at Opportunity Arkansas, and for me personally as a taxpayer and probably for many of your listeners, I don't want state spending to continue to grow. I would like for it to be flat. I would actually even like for it to go down because it has grown so dramatically. But it has to be said, because I read this article and it looks like some of these folks are just living in an alternate reality. It has to be said that we have made dramatic progress already without cutting state spending, while growing state spending. And part of the reason for that is that we have continued to have budget surpluses. As you know, as we've talked about, and your listeners know, we had a nearly $400 million surplus again this past fiscal year at the end of June this year. We're on track already to have a $150, $200 million. We'll see how the numbers shape out. But we're at a $75 million dollar surplus already for this year. So we have been able to get the income tax cut nearly in half without cutting state spending at all. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I would love to cut state spending and see some restraint in the growth of government, but we could continue on this path of just using the surpluses and fully get rid of the state income tax. Now, how long is that going to take? Like that, there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of numbers that go into that. But let me just put this in perspective for your listeners. Last fiscal year, 2024 fiscal year, the state brought in about $24 billion. Toby, you want to just guess what percentage, what amount of that $24 billion came from the state income tax?
24 billion. Would it be 25%, 30%?
15%. $3.5 billion. So in context, less than 20% of all of the revenue that comes into the state of Arkansas comes from the state income tax. So when you read this article, I mean, there were some quotes in there about, oh my gosh, like we'd have to have 50% spending cuts across the board. I mean, things, you know,
let me ask you this,
sleeping
Nick,
together. I mean,
in this vein, Nick, so in the article it says that the state income tax makes up half of the state budget. Is that an accurate statement?
That is wildly inaccurate.
Okay.
Especially because, I mean, I assume what they're saying is the general revenue budget, about half of that comes from income tax. Maybe you could get there depending on how you slice and dice the numbers. But I always make sure to remind people, and these numbers I'm giving you, Toby, these are directly from the Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration.
Sure.
This is state-reported data. But the way they do the budgeting process is so convoluted and so complicated that, frankly, a lot of legislators can't even understand it. A lot of lobbyists and folks who are supposed to be experts on this can't understand it. But the total amount of spending that comes through state government is closer to $30 billion. Now, a lot of that comes from, quote, federal taxpayers.
Sure.
But you and I know there is actually no such thing as a federal taxpayer or a state taxpayer. There are just taxpayers. And the same people that pay the federal taxes are the same people that pay the state taxes. And the state ultimately is the one that drives so many of the policy decisions that drive that federal spending. So my position has always been, you got to look at the whole pie. You got to look at the whole picture. In terms of income tax, I'll put it this way: $3.5 billion comes from income tax. $4.6 billion comes from sales tax. Our sales tax revenue is $1 billion higher, and actually a much more significant part of our budget than our income tax.
Well, and
that number is growing.
And that's what a lot of people say, is that if you're going to cut the income tax, you got to have, you know, high sales tax, which we see in certain states. And so, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear with what you're saying. So you're saying that if we can cut the income tax, but not have to cut the budget or have a really high sales tax or property tax to offset that loss. That the math is there to show that this can be done without having to slash away at the budget, right?
We can totally do that. We've seen consistently that as we've cut the state income tax, sales tax revenue and other types of revenue that come back to the state continue to grow. Even last year, 2024, it was nearly 2% growth in sales tax. So you see these media headlines about revenue down, sky falling, income tax revenue going down. Well, yeah, income tax revenue is going down because we're cutting the state income tax. Now, some of it's still coming back, and frankly, again, we have these surpluses. A lot of it is still coming back through growth, people moving into Arkansas, people staying in Arkansas, people creating new jobs. So it's not even going down as much as you might expect because, again, we've cut it nearly in half, and that revenue is still coming in. But it's coming back in other ways through sales tax, through use fees, through motor, DMV fees, all these other places. And it's just such a disservice to the conversation and the taxpayers and the people of Arkansas to have this narrow conversation about just income tax and just income tax revenue, and then frankly to just misrepresent how important income tax revenue is to our budget. It's a very, very small part of our budget.
Yeah.
It's an increasingly smaller part of our budget because we've been appropriately whittling away at it and rolling it back. And we don't need a state income tax. Tennessee, go to Tennessee. Look at their roads. Look at their schools. Look at their public safety. Look at their infrastructure.
But, Nick, Tennessee is accused of having a high sales tax. Tennessee is accused of having a high sales tax.
Oh, well, we're top 3 sales tax. That's the other piece of this, Toby. Again, we could talk for the next 20 weeks about this issue. But Arkansas is a top 3 state. So your point about people say you got a high sales tax.
Well, we already have
good news. I mean, really bad news. But good news, we already have that.
Yeah.
We have one of the highest sales tax burdens in the entire country. Property tax always comes up too, and people say, well, I'm with you, Nick. I'd love to get rid of the income tax, but if we do that, we're going to have to really jack up our property taxes, and property taxes are really the problem, and that's the argument. In reality, they're not. We have some of the lowest property taxes in the country, which is actually a good thing. Mm-hmm. But the sales tax rate, city, county, local, we talked last week about Conway, what they're trying to do here, and how high the sales tax already is here. I mean, that we're already there for sales tax at the highest end of the tier on that. So there's a lot here. Again, I would encourage people to tune into the Finnegan Show tomorrow to hear Jay Robertson.
Yeah.
He's going to dig into these numbers even more.
Yeah, so that happens at exactly 4:35 is when Jay Robertson and Steve will be getting together. Go ahead, 4:35. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
No. You could call me Steve if you want, Toby. You're
now the professor of democracy.
Sure. Well, it's a blessing and a curse, but I
hope
just want to say, at the end of the day, this is a very achievable goal. We can do all of this. We've got our Pay as We Grow plan that says literally just continue to do what we've been doing, but put it into state law so there's automatic tax reductions based on these revenue surpluses. We don't have to cut a dime from state government. It's going to take a little bit longer to get there if we don't do that. And so we're in favor of, let's rein in spending. Let's get rid of some of this waste. Our Medicaid program. I mean, Toby, our Medicaid program, we spend nearly $10 billion a year on our Medicaid program. That's more than our general revenue.
Yeah, I mean, if you got Medicaid,
there's plenty of waste, fraud, and abuse there.
You really could. I mean, if you got Medicaid down to size, that obviously starts changing what the budget looks like on a yearly basis. And the one thing we do know is that low taxes do attract talent, they do attract business, and that obviously creates more taxes being paid on the corporate side in a lot of cases. And so that can obviously be something that offsets a lot of this as well. But Nick, unfortunately, we've run out of time today. As you said, we could do 20 hours on this, probably do 20 weeks on this, and we'll continue the conversation tomorrow afternoon, 4:35 during the Finnegan Show, and of course Nick and I will do it again next Wednesday at 7:40. And of course you can always keep up to speed on what Opportunity Arkansas is working on. It's at the website opportunityarkansas.org. They have a great YouTube channel. They've got the Facebook page, all the social media. So make sure to go and check in on that. But Nick, always enjoy having you here on the show. Very informative, and appreciate the time this morning.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.